What's going on, everybody? MLS is almost here. I'm recording this on April the 13th, which means we are only a few days away from the MLS season getting kicked off this weekend. Technically, we've already had a couple CCL games, which have been really fun to watch. The MLS has showed very well in those. But the true MLS season starts this weekend, and I am very excited as you're getting ready for your fantasy drafts or your fantasy seasons. Hopefully, this can be a little primer to help you. I've already covered the defenders in part 1 of this series. Now we're getting to the midfielder. Going to break this up into 2 different groups because a lot of players here. Kicking it off, though, number 1 at the top, Nicolas Lodeiro. He's got a little bit of an injury that he picked up, but I think Lodeiro is the best option when you think about kind of the team expectations. Seattle's going to be great, and Lodeiro is the engine that makes them run. Very consistent over a long period of time. No signs of slowing down. He is an awesome pick, I think, here at number 1. Number 2, we got Pozuelo. Another great pick. His stats last year, I think, were boosted a little bit. He had a lot of penalty kicks that he took that helped his goals kind of raise up. He'll be the penalty taker again this year, but we just might not see quite as high of a number. But really what you're getting with Pozuelo is an awesome creator, very, very good assist man, good bet every year to lead the league in assist. So yeah, great option here at number 2. Very high floor, safe option with some upside as well. Number 3, we've got Reynoso. So Reynoso is the number 10 for Minnesota. I think, he's probably the guy if you're going to pick someone to challenge Pozuelo for leading the league in assists. I think he's kind of your option. Got a question mark here for his picture, so he's not on SoRare, which I'll get into that in a little bit. But anyways, he came into Minnesota United, really was pulling the strings, and, they brought in a forward last week from Boca Juniors, who's going to be a really great partner for him up top, the guy that he will be feeding his assists to. Really like Reynoso here. Number 4, we got Lucas Zelarayan, the hero for Columbus in the playoffs last year, led them to the MLS Cup. Expect him to have a really strong second year. He's very active in the final third, doesn't track back as much and get involved in defense, which can kind of, depending on the system you're playing, it can limit some of his kind of, I won't say limit his upside, but it can, it makes the floor a lot lower. So when he doesn't score and get involved in the attack as much, if a team kind of takes him out and, he's not as involved there, you can see some bad weeks in terms of, what his score is. Number 5, we've got Carlos Gil. Achilles injury last year, put him on the bench for a little bit for New England. Came back, got healthy right around the playoffs, and was instrumental in them making a run to the semifinals where they were eventually beaten by Zelarayan and the crew. But I think the Revs attack this year is going to be one of the best in the league. He's the guy who kind of pulls the strings, makes it all happen. He can, set players up, get a lot of assists. He can also finish himself, bringing up his goal tally. So I really like Carlos Gil. One of my favorite players, kind of have a bounce back year. Pedro Santos also plays for the crew. Out on the wing, just a great option for them. Gets involved in the attack, also tracks back, gets involved in the defense. Very solid player here. Number 7, we've got Sebastian Blanco, another comeback candidate. He won the MLS's back MVP and then suffered an ACL injury, which really kind of crushed the great season he was having. But an awesome player for the Timbers. I think he's a candidate for the comeback player of the year. He'll be up there, obviously battling with Vela and Joseph for that. But I think, he was on track for MVP last year. I expect him to, get back fully healthy. There's been a lot of great news out of camp about how hard he was attacking his rehab. So I expect big things from Blanco this year. Really excited about him. Number 8, Maxi Moralez, the old man in New York, just continues to kind of get it done. The focal point of that team is one of those guys, you're expecting the drop-off to come sooner or later, but it hasn't happened yet, and I'm not going to predict it to happen now. He is kind of the orchestrator there of their team. It'll be interesting, though, not a whole lot around him right now. They've got some injury issues. They didn't make any big signings, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in New York this year, but Maxi seems like a safe bet to continue to produce at a very high level. Number 9, we got Kevin Molino. Was in Minnesota last year, had a great season. He made the move over to the Columbus Crew. Since I've put this list together, Molino has suffered I think it was a hamstring injury, and they were trying to ease him back in. didn't go well. Tweaked it a little bit. So now I think they're saying, about 6 weeks potentially. So take that into account depending on what kind of, game mode you're playing. But I think, once he comes back, he's going to be playing with the crew who are, projected to be at the top of the table this year and are going to be an awesome team scoring a lot of goals. He'll be a big part of that when he's on the field. So I think a great option there. All right, we've got a tie for 10th, Lewis Morgan. So Lewis Morgan is a great striker. He kind of plays on the wing more than anything, but really good player. Kind of found his groove towards the end of the season, scored a couple goals, and it really just snowballed for him. Be looking for him to come in this year, kind of pick up where he left off, and if he does that, a young player with tons of talent. So expect really big things from him. And tied with him is Mauricio Pereyra, playing in Orlando, and just a really, really solid player. I think he's kind of one of those guys that has a high floor. He's active on the defensive side as well, but also has that upside. Can get involved in the attack very much so. So kind of a safe floor with the big upside, which is what I personally like to see when I'm playing fantasy sports. All right, a couple things to consider. I got a lot more of this list I'm going to run through, but this is a starting point. Do your own research, especially if you're investing in things. If you're playing daily fantasy, if you're playing SoRare, you're making financial investments, make sure you do your own research. This is just a place to start to help you out. Also know that all the platforms score differently. So if playing DFS, you're playing MLS Fantasy, traditional fantasy, or you're playing SoRare, everything's got a little bit of a different scoring matrix. So just make sure you understand how it's scored so that you are picking your players appropriately. If you only get rewarded for goals and assists, then focus on those guys that are tallying in those places. Versus something like SoRare, which is where I'm coming from and most of my research is done. You get a lot of kind of benefit from guys who are involved defensively, making a lot of tackles, very involved, very active. It kind of raises your floor a lot. So just know your platform and how it scores. This has nothing to do with value, so I'm purely just saying based on point potential how I'm ranking these guys. So someone being super expensive versus super cheap has no effect with how I'm ranking these guys. I've got some other videos talking about that, so feel free to check those out. And let me know who I missed down in the comments below. So if there's somebody you think should be on this list, let me know. Give it a like if you guys are getting any value out of this. Also, as we jump into number 11, Diego Valeri, the first part of the Dos Diegos in Portland. He's just, he's getting old, but he is continuing to produce at a very high level. Not as engaged defensively as he once was, but still involved in kind of progressing the attack. He'll work back, get the ball, push it forward. Very talented, very technically sound. Had an awesome free kick goal in CCL. And he played all 90 minutes. So, tons of talent. Doesn't look like they're going to manage his minutes too much. And I think, the Timbers is going to be a very, very, very strong squad this year. So, like Diego. Jesus Medina. Really talented young player in New York. Have lots of opportunity this year. Finished the year last year on a burner, as you can see there. And I think, the expectation and hope is that he continues to do that. And maybe if he does, he won't be around the MLS too long. Gets sold on to a European squad potentially, or maybe down into South America. But very highly producing, very talented young player. Number 13, Robin Lod. Playing out in Minnesota, you can play out on the wing or can play up top. A really, really talented guy. Has, again, kind of that high floor. He'll work back, get involved defensively, be kind of involved in the progressing the attack, but also can get on the end of some balls from Reynoso, who I mentioned earlier, and score some goals, or also provide service, get some assists. So good option there. 14, we got Romell Quioto. Playing up in Canada. I think he's with Montreal, but he's a very, very strong player. Consistent, kind of, I don't want to say as he goes, so goes the team. That might be giving him a little bit too much credit, but he really is, one of the guys that is going to determine how their season goes. Consistent, high floor with upside. You'll notice that kind of theme a lot here, especially as we're at the top of this list. Those are the guys who I think, provide the best option. We got Artur playing for Columbus, kind of a defensive midfielder. Really, really strong player, solid player, been a big part of their team for a little while now. He's got a knock right now, so he hasn't been playing. Aiden Morris has been filling in for him. So that's the one concern here. Aiden Morris is a U.S. national. I think he's 20 years old, maybe 19. He's been playing super, super well. He played in the MLS Cup final and had a great game, kind of really took Lodeiro out of play, which is super impressive for anybody to be able to do, much less a 20-year-old. So he's got some competition here for playing time, but the expectation is he'll, keep his spot when he's healthy. And if he does that, that'll be a great option for you. Number 16, we got Cristian Roldan out in Seattle, kind of a holding midfielder, can also push forward in the attack. I really, really like him. I think he's a great, great player. Still pretty young and kind of growing into his role, but expect a lot of minutes for him and to be a very involved player on this Seattle team. Eduard Atuesta plays for LAFC, which is a team that has very, very high expectations going into this year. Probably one of the 2 or 3 teams that's kind of the MLS Cup favorite. They got Carlos Vela, they've got Diego Rossi, they've got Mark Anthony Kaye, Eduard Atuesta. Good defense. So a lot of big expectations for LAFC this year. Atuesta might be kind of the key that unlocks it for them, though. Last year there were some really interesting stats. So when Carlos Vela, who is one of the premier players in the MLS, wasn't around, they were about a 50% win team. Versus when Atuesta was gone, they didn't win a single game. So there's probably some other contributing factors there. But he is a very, very, very important piece of this team that kind of makes it all click together. I would expect him to have a very, very big year this year. Luciano Acosta. So he's returning to the MLS. He used to be with DC United back when they had Wayne Rooney. Left the MLS kind of unceremoniously. But while he was, in his prime playing with Rooney, he made a best 11 team. So he has the quality and he's very, very capable. But he'll be coming to FC Cincinnati, who's been a little bit down lately, but potentially back on the rise. I shouldn't say back on the rise, but potentially on the rise. So their first 2 seasons, they were the Wood Spoon winners, meaning they were the last team in the MLS. But they're high hopes for this year. Made some big signings, Lucio Acosta being one of them. So, I think this is a high upside pick with also some risk that maybe it doesn't quite come together. Number 19, we've got Cole Bassett. He is an amazing midfielder out in Colorado, super young, super talented, kind of the next wave of American youth talent. But I think, big expectations for him and for the Colorado Rapids this year as they are kind of working through their youth movement and some of the players are growing into bigger roles. So Cole Bassett is a name to keep an eye on. He also may not be in the U.S. for too much longer. Some talks of a move to Europe for him upcoming, assuming that he kind of continues on his trajectory and has a good season. Number 20, Diego Chara, the second part of the Dos Diegos in Portland. He's, just kind of an ageless wonder, playing defensive mid, but he's just, which, is a spot that as people get older, they tend to, need to limit their minutes more and can't play as successfully because it's a very physically demanding position. But he's shown no signs of slowing down. Great player. Both defensively and in starting the attack, getting the ball from his defenders and pushing it forward. This guy's amazing. Assuming that he doesn't have a big drop-off, which there's no signs that he will, he'll be a very, very, very good player for you this year. If you like this video, give me a like, subscribe. Got part 2 of the midfielders coming, and then forwards will be coming shortly after that. And, stick around on my channel. Got lots of other good fantasy soccer content, especially if you're interested in SoRare. If you are interested in SoRare and you haven't signed up yet, I've got a link below. It's an affiliate link, so it helps me out. It doesn't cost you anything, so please use that if you're going to go check the site out. And if you do that, I've got a lot more content on my channel, specifically about SoRare, getting started, how to find values, best players, kind of depending on what your budget is. So feel free to check those out and let me know down in the comments if you guys have any questions at all. I appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great day.